Hello and welcome back to the Ironside. We're going to go through our match prediction for tomorrow, likely lineups, any injury updates. I'm going to talk a little bit about Declan Rice as well, as it might be, unfortunately, his last game for us at home. But without further ado, let's jump straight into it. Right, so Big Sam is back in town. Whether you have fond or not memories of Big Sam, he is effective. He's been doing this a very long time. He's very good at what he does, which is sits a lot of players behind the ball, and he has an out. He normally has a big striker to knock it off to players around him, create chaos in the box, and nick the odd point here or there. Now, in their 2 games under Sam Allardyce, we've already seen an improvement. Although they lost against Man City, they did compete for large parts of that game. They went down 2-0 relatively early, but they stayed in the game, and they could have nicked something from that game. And then last week they played Newcastle. Now, I don't know if any of you watched the game, but I did. And for large parts, Leeds were the better team. Up until that Patrick Bamford penalty miss, I couldn't see Newcastle getting anything out of that game. So this is a team that over the last couple of seasons have gone gung-ho and left loads of space in behind, loads of gaps under Bielsa, and it was still there a little bit when, is it Javi Gracia? Is that his name? When he took over, although he's meant to be a defensive manager, he didn't really quite plug the gaps. He really didn't. He came in because he's more of a defensive-minded manager after Jesse Marsch. So Jesse Marsch was in a similar mould to Bielsa in that he liked free-flowing attacking football. Leeds were obviously conceding too many goals. They were right to get rid of Marsch, although we don't like to see anyone sacked. No one wants other people to lose their jobs. But they did the right thing in bringing in Gracia, or making the change. Maybe not Gracia, but they tried to bring in a manager to solidify the defence, but it had an adverse effect. They were leaking goals left, right and centre. The one thing I'd say is they probably left it too long before getting rid of him. And now, obviously, Allardyce has come in, and it looks to be probably a little bit too late, because I can't see Leeds staying up with the results today. So now we're mathematically safe, which is awesome. We pretty much were anyway. We needed a 10-goal swing in our last 2 games against Leeds and Leicester, and Leeds needed to win both their games, obviously for the 10-goal swing. Everton drew today, which is massively beneficial for us because that puts us safe. Nottingham Forest, as I'm recording, are beating Arsenal. It's irrelevant for us anyway, so that doesn't really affect us. So we can go into the game tomorrow relatively relaxed. They've got all expectation on us. Our stadium will be buzzing because obviously Thursday night will carry that into the game. Whether the players are going to turn up or not, I don't know. I honestly don't know. But we know the type of game that Sam Allardyce is going to want to play. He's going to stick Bamford up front with probably Rodrigo and who else plays on that? Who plays on the other side? Harrison. That's it. So he'll play Rodrigo and Harrison off of him, or maybe a 2 with Rodrigo next to him, and he'll look to ping him, hit Bamford and play off the second ball. So we're not going to be here for many surprises in terms of how they're playing tomorrow. What might surprise us is how quickly they start. Because they're going to want to quiet the crowd, because we're going to be buzzing, they might come out a little bit quicker than us, and we're not the quickest starters, so I wouldn't be surprised to see us start quite slowly, and we might be penned in at the first 10 minutes or so as they're trying to get at us for the reasons I've just said. Now, originally when I started recording this, or when I done my notes for this video, we weren't mathematically safe, so some of the players that I might have listed in this next bit probably aren't going to feature, or might not feature because now they don't need to. If we weren't mathematically safe, boys would have gone as strong as possible. But anyway, with all of that in mind, we're going to we'll talk about the teams and any injury updates. As for us, we don't have any new injuries, major injuries anyway. So Scamacca's still out with his knee. He'll be out to the end of the season. Very unlikely to feature anyway until the summer. So I'd rule that out. Any hopes you have of seeing him in the final, I don't think it's going to happen. Soufal recovered from his thigh injury, I think it was. So he was in the squad on Thursday. I'd expect to see him start tonight, because I imagine Thilo Kehrer probably is been a bit AWOL since Thursday. Just gives me that vibe. I expect Ogbonna to come back in and Zuma to be rested because he's made a glass and he keeps getting injured. And we need him for the final, so it's a risk not worth taking. He's probably been rushed back a little bit after his latest setback. I expect to see Cresswell drop out for Emerson for exactly the same reasons. Emerson's younger, he's more attacking. Cresswell's old, he can't play twice in a week. He probably can, but he's wanting to play him in the final at least, so he's not going to risk him tomorrow. I expect to see Antonio drop out, which is probably one of the most obvious ones, with Ings coming in to start. Now, Ings only came on for, 15 minutes on Thursday, but I was really, really happy with his cameo. He's starting to get to grips with the role that he's playing in Moyes' team, which isn't his natural role. So in the coming weeks and months, I think Danny Ings could be a massive player for us. In the last few weeks of the season and the final, I think he can be a massive player for us. I think he'll play the last 2 games domestically. Hopefully he can get a couple of goals and really push Antonio for that starting spot in the final. Although Antonio's obviously going to start, but he needs to keep him on his toes and looking over his shoulder almost. Now I do expect to see Rice and Souček start in the middle. This, like I said in the entry, this could be Rice's last game at home for West Ham. So regardless of whether we were safe or not, Rice was always going to start this game. Souček will start because he just loves him. I initially said Paquetá would start tomorrow because we weren't safe. When I done my notes, like I said, I thought Paquetá would start. Now we're mathematically safe. He might rest him and he might play Lanzini in that role. I'm not too sure. I wouldn't be surprised to see Paquetá start because we know Moyes is a creature of habit. He likes to rely on the same sort of players. And then Fabianski's going to return as well. I'd also expect to see Cornet come in, or likely to come in. He might not. He might start Benrahma. I'm not too sure. We'll go through the actual 11 a little bit later on. But as for Leeds, they've got 5 missing from their squad. So Firpo got sent off late against Newcastle, so he won't be playing. He's suspended. Then you've got some major misses if you're a Leeds fan, which obviously we're not, so we don't care. But they've got Dallas out, Sinistera, Rocker, and Tyler Adams. Now, Tyler Adams is a player that I've liked all season. Does a similar role to Declan Rice. Obviously, he's not as good as Declan Rice at it, but he is very competent in that role. And Leeds have missed him massively in the last couple of months because McKennie has just been completely spread so thin across that midfield. He's having to do 2 jobs. So that's where we should be dominating in midfield, like we should in most games. So their 11 is going to be very similar to what they started with on last week against Newcastle, with the exception of Firpo suspended and Rocker, who's now injured. But one thing that Leeds have that we lack massively is pace. They've got so much pace on the bench as well in Nonto and Somerville. I wouldn't be surprised to see Nonto or Somerville start. I'm just going with what I expect Sam Allardyce to do because he's much like Moyes, a creature of habit. He doesn't spring too many surprises, and he'd much rather have those 2 pacey players on the bench to stick on for the last 20 minutes. If they're still in the game, if they're chasing a goal, they want to stretch us because they need an out because they're defending the lead. But they have very, very pacey wingers that come on. And Nonto's a player that I really like. He's got a lot of pace, a lot of trickery, and he's really, really difficult to defend against. You've seen so many players this year struggle with him. For some reason, he's fallen out of favour at Leeds, and I'm not too sure why. I don't watch Leeds too often, so I wouldn't be able to tell you exactly why. Because what I see from the outside is a very good player that's hard to defend against, but we don't know what goes on. Bamford is going to be on one, I think, this week because of his penalty miss last weekend. So just to talk about that quickly. Death threats and abuse of any kind is not on, and it's ridiculous that he's had to deal with, him and his family have had to deal with that this week. So obviously he missed the penalty last week, and then from his own fans he's received so much abuse online, him and his family this week. It's ridiculous. So I can expect to see a big performance from Bamford this week. I'm not always the biggest fan of Bamford. I don't think his qualities are aligned to modern day football. But he is a goal scorer. He is the perfect player for someone like Sam Allardyce. He's actually a good player for Moyes as well when you think about it. Someone that can hold up the play, that can harry defenders, and doesn't mind doing the dirty work. So all he's going to do is he's going to receive the ball and he's going to give it off to Rodrigo or Harrison. And like I said earlier, I think you can expect to see Rodrigo come inside and almost play over two up front, and to play that little and large, almost old school football that Sam Allardyce loves. Now on to the predicted lineups. Now on to the West Ham lineup. From what I've heard, and what I've read, there's a few unnamed minor injuries from that AZ game. Now, what that translates to me is that there's a couple players that may have gone a bit AWOL after the game because no one came off injured. There wasn't anyone limping. So I think that's probably just a pretext to I'm gonna rest a few players. They're not all going to be playing. So I expect Moyes to go as close to full strength as possible. Again, when I was doing my notes, a draw was enough for us to be safe. We're already safe now. So as you can see, we'll return to Fabianski in goal. I think Soufal's going to start right back. I can't see him starting Kehrer again. Although I'll hold my hands up. Kehra's been phenomenal of late and he hasn't done anything wrong. But Soufal is just my preferred right back. He's just come back from injury. And him and Kehrer are probably going to be fighting for that final right back spot now. So it'll be interesting to see who he goes for. I think I'd personally go with Soufal. If he's fit enough to be on the bench Thursday, he's fit enough to start tonight, and he gives Kehrer a little bit of rest. I think Agai's going to play on the right side of centre back again, with Zuma dropping out for a Bonner. Now, Agai's struggled massively in recent months, but he only struggles when he's on the right side of the fence. We are overloaded with left-footed centre backs. Both Aguerd and Ogbonna are left-footed. Ogbonna can't play on the right. I don't know. He just can't. He never plays on the right, and Aguerd really, really struggles on the right. So this is an area of weakness for me. If it was down to me, I'd probably do the same, because we let Dawson go for some unknown reason in January. Actually, no, there is a reason. He wanted to be close to his family. Makes sense. But we didn't replace him. So that's somewhere we need to really look at in the summer. We need a right-footed centre-back to come into the squad. But anyway, again, we'll be on the right side, Bonner on the left, and then Emerson will come in at left-back. That, I think, is pretty nailed on as a back four, with the exception of Soufal, actually. Then our standard trio in midfield of Rice, Souček and Paquetá. Again, like I said, I think Paquetá could quite easily drop out for Lanzini. But knowing Moyes, he won't. If Paquetá's fit and ready to go, he'll play him. Then I've gone... Oh, I didn't mean to do that. Fornals won't be playing. That's meant to say Bowen. So it's meant to be Bowen, Ings and Cornet. When I did it, I obviously forgot to change Fornals back. But Cornet might not start. Fornals could start over Cornet, or Benrahma could start. So our front three, who knows? But that's wrong. That wasn't meant to be on there. It was meant to be Bowen, Ings and Cornet. That's what I think we're going to go with. That's what I think we should go with. Cornet needs more minutes. We haven't seen enough from him in a West Ham shirt. If we're perfectly honest, like, we're not let's not beat around the bush. He's been injured for a long time, which again isn't there's nothing he can do about that. But he needs to do more when he's had the minutes. Against Brentford, like so many last week, he was poor. So it'll be interesting to see who he picks in them wide forward roles. But Ings will, no doubt in my mind, Ings will start. He's not going to play Antonio twice in a week. Not worth the risk. Now, moving on to Leeds, which is up for debate because I don't know who's going to come in at left back for them. But anyway, so for some reason, Sam Allardyce has dropped Meslier. I know he's come under fire recently. He's made a few mistakes, but I really like Meslier. Keepers make mistakes, and when a keeper makes mistakes, it normally leads to a goal. So I think they get a lot of really harsh criticism, by myself included. But nonetheless, he's going to go with Robles in goal. Luke Ayling will go right back. Christensen and Koch will come in at centre back. I think Max Wober might move out to left back, with Koch coming in to replace Firpo. But who else? They've got Struijk. Is it Pascal Struijk or something like that? Struijk might come in for Koch instead, but it'll be one of the two. Then I think you're going to have Adam Forshaw come in for Rocker, who's injured. Weston McKennie and Sam Greenwood making up their midfield three. Then you'll have Harrison, Bamford and Rodrigo as their forward line. Now, their forward line picks itself. That's 100% what he's going to go for. I'd be very surprised if he doesn't. But what I think you might see tomorrow is I think you might see it switch to more of a 3-5-2 or 5-3-2 with Ayling pushing up into a wing-back role, Max Wober moving over to the left-sided of a 3 centre-back, and then Harrison pulling out to the left wing-back role. Rodrigo and Harrison will swap quite a lot during the game, but that will allow Bamford and Rodrigo to play off each other. Well, Rodrigo to play off Bamford, which he loves, and it also gives him more solidity in midfield. So I'd expect to see quite a bit of change in the game from the standard 4-3-3 that you're seeing there. Now, begrudgingly, we'll move on to the massive elephant in the room, and that is, of course, Declan Rice. So nothing certain. It's all very cryptic and circumstantial. He hasn't said he's leaving. However, with all that being said, I can say with a fair degree of expectation, this will be Declan Rice's last home game as a West Ham player. With it being his last home game, I'd normally say that you could probably tell a lot from his reactions post-game in an interview or when he goes over to say thank you to the fans. But with the fact that we have a European final not a couple of weeks away, he might keep them emotions in check. So we might not know any more tomorrow than what we know now. Now, of course, I hope Declan Rice stays. Of course I do. But we have to be honest with ourselves and understand that he wants to go on and win Champions Leagues and league titles, which we might do in the coming years. But we are so far off that it'd be unfair of us to expect a great player like Declan Rice, who's the best West Ham player I've seen in my lifetime, to hold him back from achieving all them things that he could go on and achieve. It'd be exactly the same as what Tottenham are doing with Harry Kane. Harry Kane's going to stay at Tottenham and not win anything. He's going to have the golden boot, however many times he's won it. He might catch Alan Shearer. I expect him to catch Alan Shearer to be the all-time top goal scorer, but he'll have nothing. He's not going to win the league. He's not going to win any major trophies. He might win a Carabao Cup, and they're not going to win the FA Cup. Do we want that to be Declan Rice's legacy as well, but without the top goal scorer in the Premier League? Now, it's not something that we can really debate about too much because it's nothing that we can do. But I expect this to be his last game in a West Ham shirt at home. Now it makes me feel sick saying about it, but it is what it is. One thing I will say is that regardless of what he decides in the summer and what the club decide to do with him in the summer, he's been a great servant and a great captain for us. At times, it's been questioned this year's captaincy by a lot of our supporters. Whether that's fairly or not, that's not for me to decide. But my opinion is that he's been a wonderful, wonderful professional captain and servant for the club. He's the exact type of example that you want your kids watching. When you see someone like Declan Rice playing and what he's been through to get to where he is, it is literally what you write down and give to your son to say, this is what makes a professional footballer. This is what makes you a role model, and this is the type of person you need to aspire to be. And the praise just could go on for Declan Rice. Now, moving on from that, because I don't want to start crying. But my prediction for tomorrow, I think it's going to be a score draw. I think it's going to be a dull game. I've got to be honest. But I think it's going to be 2-2. I think there'll be a few goals, but it's going to be a boring game. But that's my thoughts. That's my prediction of the game. If you like that, guys, don't forget to subscribe. It really helps us out. And if you want to see more from us, don't forget to give us a like. And until the next one, come on, you Lions.